If you don't have people that dislike you or get upset with you, you probably don't really respect yourself. I know that this sounds crazy, but the reason is that you have this type of personality that you have to please everyone. You have to be flexible and cater to everyone's needs, and you kind of do what everybody else expects you to do. I feel that this constant desire that we have to constantly cater to what everybody needs and wants is actually disrespecting yourself. For example, something that solidified that in my head. As you know, right now I'm traveling with Anu, my wife, and a friend of ours came to see us. What happened is that the way that Jordan likes to travel is going from store to store, trying different things. The issue is that me and Anu, we have a completely different cadence of life and traveling. What my nervous system and my programming wanted to do inside of me was to be nice and do what they want to do because they're here just for a week and I want to be a good host. But what I realized is that this is exactly how I disrespect myself and Anu. So I was blunt and I explained the situation clearly to Jordan. And there was no harm feelings on my end. I was actually very excited. But Jordan, at least initially, didn't take that the right way. And in this moment like this, that kind of emphasize exactly what I'm talking about. Because if I compromise with this person and I just travel the way that they want, I wouldn't enjoy my trip and I wouldn't create the right environment for my wife, which is my number one priority. So basically I'm doing something that I know it wouldn't benefit me just to make someone else happy. And this is why I'm saying that if you don't have people that dislike you or get upset with you, then you're probably disrespecting yourself. Because it is practically impossible to make everybody happy. So I will keep using myself as an example because there is some really concrete lessons that you can take for your life. Coming into school until I was around 16, 17, I was a huge people pleaser. I needed people to like me, from my family to my friends. And I had moments that I remember that I wasn't enjoying going out to certain places, especially when there was a lot of smoking or going clubbing in the night. I remember hating these places, but I felt this certain pressure that I had to go there in order for me to be with these people. It almost felt like I'm binded by the personality that I showed at the start that I am in order to get into this friend group. And I was compromising who I am, what I like, what I want to do, from not studying to having conflicts with my parents in order to please and adhere to the original image I gave to this friend group. But the thing is that as I'm getting older and I'm maturing through reading, I start seeing more and more that I don't really care about how many people like me. And I see more and more that if I have the right intentions and I'm congruent to my highest priorities, then the right people get attracted to me that makes sense to be with who I am. Recently, I had one of my biggest moral dilemma in my life. I was trying to set up the perfect proposal for Anu. And what I wanted to do was to fly our families from all around the world, my family, as you know, from Greece, and her family from Canada, and for everyone to come together to where we were living at the time, which was Austin, Texas. As you can imagine, that was a nightmare to set up. The issue is that every person in the family had a completely different agenda. The first one was the dates. The second problem was that they wanted different people to be there. And it was getting so annoying and painful, and I was trying to be flexible to everyone. I was actually compromising myself and the vision I created for Anu and the proposal. So at some point, I realized something simple, which is that it is impossible for me to make everyone happy. So I made a simple mental model, which is that Anu is my number one priority. So as long as this thing makes sense for Anu, I'm doing it. And everyone else, I'm just rejecting it. And I looked like a bad guy on multiple conversations, but as long as I was explaining clearly that, hey, this is for Anushka, this is for her proposal, she's my number one priority, this cannot happen because it conflicts with my number one priority, then people were dissatisfied, but at the end of the day, they were getting the point. So as long as I'm a good person in my heart, the right people will come and will be around me and will respect me. And they don't actually care for me, they will hate me or don't want to be around me, which is actually a benefit. The thing is, during the times that I disrespected myself in my life, and this happened a lot, is that I thought that I was loving myself. I was looking at myself in the mirror, I was loving myself, I was having the right thoughts. But then, even though I loved myself, I was actually disrespecting myself at the same time. And I was doing that simply by not giving me as a high priority and being too flexible for everyone around me to just push their own agenda on me. And I start realizing that more and more, especially now that I'm married. Because now, when I make a decision, it doesn't only affect me, it also affects Anu. So if I disrespect myself, and if I'm not congruent as a man towards what makes sense for our relationship, and I'm just too flexible to everyone's needs, I'm actually disrespecting her too. And it's funny, like, we would do so much more for others than we would ever do for ourselves. So my point is that just because you love yourself and just because you love somebody doesn't mean that you will not disrespect yourself or you will not disrespect someone else. And this is the part that I want you to write down and I want you to think about yourself. Of like, when right now you are disrespecting yourself. Because sometimes it is masquerading under you being nice and being a good person, but actually deep down you feel incongruent and sometimes you even feel sick to your stomach, like you're doing something good, but actually that feels bad. And this is a really good indicator that you can go back and you can see the moments that you were disrespecting yourself, because the first and most important part is awareness and be able to find these moments of when you are doing that and how. So one thing that, as you know, I love to do is to go back to my training on Greek philosophy when I was in Greece. And one thing that comes to mind is Socrates. If Socrates was here and thinking about this conversation and what respecting yourself even means, probably he would be confused. Socrates was focused, or even more obsessed, with asking questions and getting to know yourself. The only thing that mattered for him was self-examination until you arrive to the truth. And he was obsessed on living according to reasons, not emotions. So his focus is to achieve arete through the process itself. Arete is kind of like the Greek word for ultimate success. Or even better than success, it's more like achieving excellence. So to make it simple, achieving excellence through self-examination brings you to a point that you are a person that you already know what is right, so you do that automatically, and it is impossible by definition to disrespect yourself because you are congruent to yourself. It is the process of becoming a person that cannot be disrespected. It is just impossible. Because you know your self-worth and your values so clearly that you cannot compromise that for nothing. I started to respect myself so much more after getting married because it was one of my responsibility as part of this relationship. And I feel that making people upset is part of the experience. Yes, a lot of people will love you and will understand you and they will be happy with who you are becoming, but you also need to be ready to get away from people that are toxic and they don't want you to change. So the thing is, if you take anything from this video, loving yourself, yes, it's important, but respecting yourself and respecting the people around you, like the people that you love, is even more important. And respecting yourself is a foundational element, and you have to have this element in order to be successful in life. And already you having awareness of what you do and how you're a people pleaser is already so much further than where most people are. Thank you guys for watching. It was really fun making this video and I will see you in the next one.